Okay, so we'll begin. We're still holding the Siman Kuf Aleph. We'll go through just a portion of the Siman. We won't go through the whole Siman. Din Chaticha Ruya Liskabed. The special halachas concerning a piece of meat or something else that is asur, that is Ruya Liskabed. Ruya Liskabed meaning that it's fit to be served for special people. It's not your ordinary small piece. It is something perhaps that you make a meal of itself. You know, they serve you sometimes in banquets rib steak with some carrots on the side and a potato, and it's a whole meal in itself. It's Ruya Liskabed. And Chachamim, of course, this is a D'Rabbanan, decreed that this type of an Isser is chashuv, is important, and certain things that are chashuvim, including something that we will learn later on called the Dover Shebeminyan, that is counted, Dover Sheyesh Lo Matirin, things that will be at some point mutter. We're not going to give them the easy way out concerning bitul. We're going to say it's not batul afilu be'elef. Why? Why should we say it's not, that something that is royu leiskabed should not be batul? So we said it all depends how you understand the sugya in chulin, the toisves, the rosh, who hold that actually Ruya Liskabed and Dover Shebeminyan are very similar. In other words, the whole idea, the concept behind a Dover Ruya Liskabed, and this is important to keep in mind, is really because it's a type of Dover Shebeminyan. It is something that is counted, something that has chashivas, that bittul does not apply to it. Whereas the Rashba and the Ran say it has nothing to do with Dover Shebeminyan. It's something apart from that. Just because of being royal to be mechabed guests, that in itself is significant enough. That's pretty much the machlokas as to why this is not batul. In other words, what are we talking about exactly? But what we have not seen yet is there anything that can destroy this particular concept? In other words, something that, let's say, everybody is in agreement that is a royal liskabed, can anything undo it? We did see that by Biria. By Biria we saw that if it's crushed, it loses its identity. It loses the whole essence of being a Biria, right? Something that is pogum. It's just defective, right? So we will see, B'ezrat Hashem, next week, not today, that even a royal liskabed can lose its status of royal liskabed under the right circumstance. We still don't know where does royal liskabed actually apply. Does it apply to cheese too if it's a big piece? It's royal liskabed. Does it apply to any food item? Because royal liskabed is a general concept. It's royal liskabed. That we understand more or less, regardless of whether it's according to the Tosfos or the Rashba, what the reason for it. It has chashivas that the Chachamim, Midrabanan, said it's not batul. It's so important. We're not going to let it be batul. All right, fine. But we still don't know what exactly does that apply to. Obviously, it has to be something important. Okay? And then we went on to explain that this Isser, even though it's the Rabbanan, it would also apply to rabbinic decrees, Isurim of rabbinic decree. It's not only Chaticha Ruya Liskabed by an Isser d'Oraisa, it's also if something is also Midrabanan, for whatever reason, almost for whatever reason. The reason I say almost is because there are things that are asur midrabanan that have no chaticha ruya liskabed. What would be those exceptions? Bishul akum, the same thing we said by Biria. By bishul akum, those kind of things, pas akum, these are things that are rabbinic decrees as well. They're not as strict as an isur d'Rabbanan by Basar v'chala, for example, perhaps. Okay?
So is this or not, or because you haven't?
Yeah, here there's no the real distinction so much, but you can apply it. Yeah, you can. Right, you can say that same logic. Yeah, but Ruya Liskabed, the Isur does apply to an ordinary Isur d'Rabbanan, but not the Isur d'Rabbanan that are really because we may intermarry and the like. As Ilan was saying, it doesn't really have a root, a shorish in the Torah. It was.
Or maybe because it's not really to prevent a different type of conduct.
Right. It's something unrelated. Could be. Yeah.
It would be interesting when you have a case in front of you to be able to determine.
Sure. Right. And also we said that if it's a suffix royal liskabed or not, It's a Safek D'Rabbanan, Safek D'Rabbanan Lekula. Okay? That's pretty much what we said, and I'm going to go a little bit more into the Taz, just briefly, that discusses the inyan of cheese. The reason why I want to discuss it, only because he makes a distinction between Chalav Tmeya, Chalav Treifa. These are concepts that are good to know about. What is the issue? What is a Davar Amamid? So because he brings in all these interesting ideas, it's worthwhile. Not so much because of the halacha, even though the halacha is important to know. I don't know how often it will happen that you'll have a shaila of cheese, Davar, royalist kabbalah or not, but so we'll briefly talk about that. But before we go into that, we talked about a Safek Davar royalist kabbalah being a Safek D'Rabbanan. It's brought down in the Pri Megadim, who brings it down, I think, in the name of the Minchas Yaakov. What if you have a Safek, you have pieces that fell in, that were mixed, and you have some that are royalist kabbalah, you don't know which one fell in, if it's the Isser, if that's the one that's royalist kabbalah or not. Okay? You have pieces that fell into a pot, they all got mixed in. Some of them are royalist kabbalah. Okay?
Some of them meaning whatever you find in the pot right now, some of the pieces in the pot are really chabed.
And some are not.
And
some are not. And you don't know if the Isser that fell into this mixture is the one that is royalist kabed or it's not royalist kabed.
Maybe the royalist kabed is a heter piece.
Exactly.
And the Isser is a different piece.
Right. So they want to say that this should be a typical Safek D'Rabbanan too. Even though we're talking about a Safek D'Oraisa, it's an Isser. Even though the Isser is a D'Oraisa, this may also be a Safek concerning the royalist kabed or not. Even though the Pri Megadim says, even though the Ramah didn't say that he had this in mind as a Safek in royalist kabed or not, the typical Safek is this or is it not royalist kabed? But such a situation where you have pieces falling in, some are royalist kabed and some are not. Is the Isser one royalist kabed or not? Or maybe the heter is the one that's royalist kabed. If it's the Isser, then it's not batal. But I don't know which one. So, it's a good question, but he appears to be saying that this could also qualify as a Safek of royalist kabbalah, which is a Safek D'Rabbanan. However, if it would be, is this chatircha asura or not, with the Raisa? Obviously, this is a Safek D'Oraisa.
So that's very interesting.
Okay.
Because in the case that you just mentioned, you have both. With respect to the chaticha asura, which I don't know if it's royalist kabbalah or not.
I know.
I have the Safek D'Rabbanan.
Yeah.
But with respect to
Right.
the chaticha royalist kabbalah,
Right.
I have a Safek D'Oraisa because I don't know if it's forbidden or not.
Right. It is royalist kabed. This particular piece I have right now, I just don't know if it's usher or not.
It's a
Wow.
Safek D'Oraisa.
That's a Safek D'Oraisa.
But
Right?
at the same time, if I look at one that's not royally said,
Right.
I mean, I don't know that the Asuran is royally said.
Right. I don't know.
So that would be the Safek D'Rabbanan.
That would be possibly
So
Safek
I have
D'Rabbanan.
both
Right.
fakers at the same time in the same pot with respect to the same.
No,
same halacha.
you know it's a Safek D'Oraisa. You know it's a D'Oraisa. The Isser in the pot
Right.
is for sure D'Oraisa.
Right.
You only have one Safek. Which
But
one?
I don't know if it's royally chabed.
Right. That's all. Yeah.
That's the Rabbanan.
Yeah. That's the Rabbanan.
That's a Rabbanan, yeah.
But on the
In a sense, but that's not the exact example of the Ramah. In a Safek, a typical Safek royalist kabed, is this a royalist kabed or not? What I'm looking at.
Right.
There's a
Right.
question of whether, or there's two shitas. This one says it is, and this one says it's not. That's a typical Safek royalist kabed and Safek
Right.
Rabbanan. But here,
I don't know where to.
I don't know which one it is.
I don't know where to look.
Where to look. So it could be a Safek royalist kabed and Safek Rabbanan. All right.
He says royalist kabbalah.
Right. That's
the
exactly. That's the Ramaz
Oh,
example.
we didn't read it yet.
We didn't read it inside. I think we did. No.
No, Royalist chabed we started. Oh, no, so we started.
Yeah. I believe we started.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. I didn't.
Yeah. We went into Seed Base also.
Okay.
So that's the Ramah's typical example of a Safek of this. If this is a royalist kabbalah, not a Safek D'Rabbanan, and we're Mako. The question that I included now, that I suggested, brought down in the Pri Megadim is, we have pieces falling in, they're all mixed up, some are royalist kabbalah, some are not. I know one of them is Usr. I don't know if the Usr one is royalist kabbalah. So the Pri Megadim said, I don't know if the Ramah had this one in mind as well as a suffix in a royal iskabed or not. Okay, that's all. But apparently it is. Apparently it's a suffix derabanan here. Either way. All right. Now, briefly we spoke about the inclusion of the words in the Mechaber that royal iskabed is like a birya, that it's not batal afilu be'elef, v'afilu im hi asur behano. So just to refresh our memories, afilu asur behano. What do you mean afilu asur behano? Yes, afilu asur behano. Therefore what? Therefore what? Afilu asur behano, right? And it's asur anyway. In other words, why do I need to consider royal iskabed? Right now I'm saying poshup pshat without bringing in the Aruch HaShulchan, without bringing anybody else. Poshup pshat. Even if it's a surah behano, therefore what? Therefore, royal iskabed perhaps doesn't apply. It's also behano anyway. No. Kivan shim tizbatel, it may cancel out. It may be bottle, roiv or shishim, whatever. And then once it's bottled, this isur behano will be mutter. But it's royal iskabed. I have another reason to make it asur. So I want to be safe. In other words, I want to keep this isur asur. Even though you tell me, don't worry about royal iskabed here, it's asur behano anyway, right? Don't worry about royal iskabed. This one
not takes away that it's already chabed.
No, I may think that even though this is a surah behano, why involve other isurim here or other issues of non-bittul when this is asur behano anyway? Well,
would be mizbatel.
It may be, it has the potential of becoming mizbatel if there's enough shear.
Right.
But once we say, well, wait a minute, this is still a royal iskabed, so therefore the royal iskabed avoids or holds back this isur behano from ever becoming batel. So don't think just because you have an isur behano here, let's not worry about royal iskabed. It's asur behano anyway. No. It's asur behano, but it eventually could be mutter behano. In other words, it could be mutter the whole thing. How? If it's batel. So asur behano doesn't mean it's completely asur. What if you have basar b'chalav, the textbook example of isur behano? Mm-hmm. Isn't it batel b'shishim too?
Sure, Hanan is batel b'shishim.
Chanan, the real Chanan of basar b'chalav Chanan. It's batel b'shishim. Sure. And then it's mutter to eat too.
Yeah, you can't smoke it.
Then why do we...
Right? No, so the Mechaber says, Mechaber is obviously many times quoting the Tur, right? So he says, so here, therefore I want to tell you that I don't care if it's asur behano, if it's still royal iskabed, I need to know that. Because just in case this mixture of asur behano, of basar b'chalav ever gets bottle, it's still not bottle because it's royal iskabed for another reason.
So
that's a poshup shot, yeah.
If it's something that's ra'ui chabed,
right?
That means that by serving it, I'm deriving a benefit. This the benefit of being mechabed some with it.
Okay.
If it's asur behana'ah, I'm not allowed to have a benefit of being mechabed some with it.
Okay.
I'm not even allowed to give it to a goy.
That's correct.
That's
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not
Yeah.
allowed to derive any benefit.
Any benefit, right.
I can't give it to the goy to say, here, I'm honoring you and I want
Right.
something in return.
Sure.
So, if so, the Isser Bahana, doesn't it take away the fact that it's the La'ulei Chabed? Because I can't practically ever use it for La'ulei Chabed. I can't be Mechabed someone with it.
In a sense, that's what he's saying.
So-
In different words, you're saying it in different words. Yes.
So
in other words, I don't need to
in
introduce
other
here.
words, if La'ulei Bahana can be misbattled, and it takes away the La'ulei Chabed, I could think that now something that was not La'ulei Chabed was misbattled.
Right.
So maybe here on that he's saying, no, the Hana will be misbattled in the Nafshir,
But it will continue
and then it becomes La'ulei Chabed,
Yeah.
and then it ushers everything, because now it's an Isser of eating of La'ulei Chabed,
Right.
and because that is so, the Isser of Hana'ah does not interfere.
Yeah. But the Chidush here, what's interesting here, there's an additional point, and that is brought on the Shach. The Shach brings down that Isura Hano like Basar B'chalav, if they happen to also be royal iskabed, Oisrin Taaruvot Gam Kin Behano.
That's a new.
Okay? In other words, if you have Basar B'chalav, which is Asur Behano, and you have the Basar B'chalav that is royal iskabed,
Nice piece of
okay? And because it's royal iskabed, it won't be bottle. Guess what now? The entire mixture, because of the royal iskabed element over here, will now be Asur Behano.
So in other words, the Holy Chabed doesn't only prevent the Isser of eating to be misbottled, also prevents the Isser of Hana to be misbottled.
Exactly, yeah.
So yeah, Basar B'chalav, fine.
Asur B'chalav is Asur Behano.
Fine.
Royal Iskabed is a separate Isser that means that this mixture is not even bottled Be'elef. Basar B'chalav is bottled. But here, so what I have here is two concepts joining forces, the Shach says. If you potentially have, if you have this is a Basar B'chalav situation which is Asur Behana, but it also happens to be Royal Iskabed, then this mixture that is Asur Behana, but even if there's 1,000 of the heter against the Isser, the entire 1,000 will now be also Asur Behana. Why? Because I introduced an Isser called Royal Iskabed that does not allow any bittul. Even though usually I use that concept for food, for eating purposes, here it will also apply, the Shach says, to the concept of Hana from this Basar B'chalav. I cannot benefit from the entire thing at all. If I had shishim by regular Basar B'chalav, I could eat, I could have Hana. Right? Here, the Royal Iskabed prevents me from anything. That's just an interesting point that the Shach makes, which is apropos. Yeah.
The issue is you did 1,000.
Right.
We had cheated, wasn't necessarily.
Yeah.
Are we going to have less than 1,000?
No, not here.
We have 60.
Right. Here we don't need. We're not dealing with that. Those shitas are still applicable whenever we need them for rendering a decision. We can rely. Remember, we said we can sometimes rely on that shita as an additional leniency if we need to.
We could deal with beauty and could rely on that.
Exactly.
60, right?
Right.
Could we rely on that? There was no exception here. On this issue.
Yeah, those shitas only. That particular example was only by a birya.
Okay.
Right.
So that the Shach is what the Mechaber means, because when he says that even if it's Asur B'hana, because if it would be batal, then it would be fitting for a guest, does he say that statement?
Shach is adding an additional point that we may not have thought of.
He looks at the statement because I'm wondering, why is the Mechaber B'hana? I mean, what's the point? It's just going to be carried along like.
Because here here's the din about Royal Iskabed. That's all. This is the only din of Royal Iskabed that Isur is not bottled. We're not talking about Isur Hana over here.
Yeah, but
he mentions this, which is interesting. In other words, the fact that he mentions the words, even if it's a Sur Behana, in other words, it was a little puzzling why he says those words. It is puzzling. Why is he saying those words? What does it have to do with anything?
So I thought maybe the Shach
So I brought in what the Orcha Shulchan threw in, and that is a situation where you have Isur Davar Royal Iskabed being mixed in with other food items that are Asur B'achila. Asur B'achila. You can't eat it anyway. Okay? That it would be bottled. Why do I need to know that this Royal Iskabed here would be bottled? Because he learns, I think Crazy Place, he brings it down, that for something to be Royal Iskabed, it has to be Royal Iskabed for everyone. If this mixture where some food is not, I'm not permitted to eat, it's treif, or whatever, and there's a Royal Iskabed that falls in here, the only one that can enjoy this will be a goy, then this piece that is falling in is not considered Royal Iskabed for purposes of bittul. It will be bottled. Because it's not fit for me anyway to eat. The rest of the pieces in the pot are not kosher. So the din of Royal Iskabed would not apply in that case. Okay, so therefore I wanted to say perhaps that's why he's somehow introducing, in addition to the Pashut Pshat, this idea of Hana is that perhaps, you may think, if something is Asur B'hana, Royal Iskabed does not apply either. This is anyway Asur B'hana. So he says, no, don't think that. If something is Asur B'hana, like Basar B'chalav, you still can have the Isur of Royal Iskabed apply. Why? No, Mechaber says. No, the Shach says something else. Mechaber says, still this will apply. Why? Just in case this Isur B'hana, like Basar B'chalav, ever becomes bottle, and it can become bottle of the Shishim or Roiv, I won't let it, because the piece that fell in is a Royal Iskabed.
That makes sense.
That's all.
What the Shach
No. The Shach just adds one little detail. By the way, because we're talking about Asur Behana over here, this royal iskabet piece is going to really make these things worse. Why? Because he's going to take the entire mixture of 1,000 and make the whole thing Asur Behana.
But the Rabbi Elyahu Kin adds one important point.
All right? You understood that? In other words, ordinarily, royal iskabet is only an issue of bittul, whether I can eat it or not.
So you're saying the Mechaber is only addressing the issue, choice piece.
Right.
Whereas Asur Bahana will still be, cannot be.
The piece that this mixture that is Asur Behana, right? The piece that is Asur Behana, whatever it is, right? Because it's royal iskabet, it's not batul be'elef, right? Had it not been royal iskabet, it could still be batul be'shishim. Just because it's Asur Behana doesn't make it any worse than any other isser. The only difference between Asur Behana and non-Asur Behana is whether I can feed my dog, sell it to a goy. Can I have any benefit? That's the only difference, but it still has bittul. But it still has bittul.
You're saying the shop is adding it's a chanan in a sense.
Yes, that's right.
You're saying you have a
yes, very good.
Applies to a chanan. It makes it a chanan. It's not
similar. It's similar to a chanan. Very good. Yeah, Mechaber is not even talking about it, but it's obvious that everybody agrees with that. That's yes.
One interesting thing.
Okay.
And that is, however, if it's the price of the share by
Yeah.
the value
We
of
spoke
this,
about that. Yeah.
So that makes it no, but that makes it
Yeah,
this is
but the
what
Shach
I'm
says you
not.
can act. No, but the Shach says you can benefit from the whole thing if you take out. We'll sell it to a goy except for the piece.
Except for the value.
For the value of the piece that is also. No. You're talking about the rest of the pot, right?
And 4, or however.
No, the whole thing is usher right now.
The whole pot.
The whole pot is usher right now. With the pot itself, no, but the food, yes, because the whole thing is, what can we do? Obviously, if you recognize the isser, then what do? You take out the isser, then you only have to deal with plita. And plita is always going to be not more than 60. There's no such thing as royal iskabet on the plita. There's no such thing as birya on the plita. What's secreted from the isser. That's only tam. Tam is up to 60. Unless it's one of those unique tams that we said before, it's more than 60. But this is 60. So we're concerned only with the piece. You see the piece? Get rid of it. But the problem is I have 6, 7 pieces that are royal iskabet, and one of them is usher. Well, then you're stuck. It's the whole thing is. But I have the majority. No. It's royal iskabet. You can't use majority. You can't use shishim. It's a filu be'elef lo batom. Okay, and here we have a problem that if it's Asur Behana, then the whole thing is Asur Behana, even if you have 1,000. Like you said, like a type of chanan. All right, but anyway.
But you also said that if it's
okay, remember that was something else. That was other question.
It would be mekel.
Right. That's the Pri Megadim that I mentioned in the name of Melicha Yaakov. Maybe you would be mekel because you don't know if the piece that fell is royal iskabet or not. All right.
But it's, as a footnote, it's
All right.
interesting that the Rabbanan Dikadin can actually usher a whole pot of, even though it's only 1,000 of the contents.
Right, sure. That's what they said
But
about over royal
what a
iskabet,
footnote.
over shishto matira. Yeah, it's not batul at all. But here they do allow for selling the whole thing to a goy minus. That's the difference. Minus what is usher.
And now the Rabbi Elyahu Kin, now comes the Rabbi Elyahu Kin,
Right.
has another twist on that.
Yeah.
No, because he says, unless the guy is buying the whole mixture only because of that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay, that's about, yeah. All right, so then we went on to, this is again from the last year, we went to briefly talk about a little bit about cheese. Now in cheese, you have various issues in cheese. You have the milk that it's made out of. You have the actual dover amamid that puts it together. Okay? And the fact that this is possibly made by goyim. Okay, so 3 things here. Was this cheese made by goyim, even if it's kosher milk? Okay, the davar mamid. What did they use for being mamid? For what's the English word for it?
The curd.
For the curd, right? What are the possibilities? The curd is called. What are the possibilities? They can use various kinds of curd. One is enzymes. How do they call it? Not derived from animal origin or whatever. Still also. Vegetable rennet. Yeah, you cannot buy non-kosher cheese that is kosher ingredients, cow's milk, if it was made by goyim without Jewish intervention. Okay, rabbinic decree. Even though it's not vegetarian rennet, whatever you want to call it. But we want to know that we have a problem with cheese made by goyim. We have a problem with what makes cheese, and we have a problem with the actual ingredients of the cheese. What could be the problem with the ingredients of the cheese? We know, for those of you who learn Basar b'chalav, it's pretty much elaborated there. You cannot make cheese from a behemoth tmeya, camel's milk. What?
Milk from behemoth.
Milk. Yeah, right. I'm sorry. From milk of behemoth tmeya, right? It won't work. Okay. Well, wait a minute. Okay, behemoth tmeya is not a problem.
What do you mean it won't?
It won't curd.
It won't curd.
It won't work. You can't make cheese from it. Cheese cannot be made. It will not form from a non-pure animal.
So camel milk,
Pig's milk, all that you
it
can.
will not turn into
will
cheese.
not turn
You
into
can
cheese.
stand on your head.
Right, exactly. It will not turn into cheese. Right. Now,
That's right. He's Siman now.
that's why you can buy butter without having it. And you should still buy butter with a kosher supervision for other reasons, but you don't have to suspect that it came from a non-kosher source. When you buy milk, what's the problem with milk? Chalav akum. The Chachamim made a gzera, maybe the goy put non-kosher milk. Camel, pig, or whatever. Donkey, right? Possibly, they do that in some countries, they still do. Okay? So then there's the question, what if it's impossible? Can you still have it or not? That's in this country? Okay, that's the halacha of chalav akum. But cheese is not a problem to make it. What's the reason? The Chachamim made a different decree about cheese, like they did with Bishul Akum, like with Pas Akum. We don't eat their cheeses. All right. But the problem is not the chalav tmeya in the cheese. What can be the problem? Chalav treifa. Oh, treifa? Yeah, you can't have anything that comes out from a treif is treif. It's cow. It's a treif. You somehow happen to know that this is a treifa cow. If you don't know, still it could have been a treifa. But we can use roiv. For that you use roiv. Roiv behemoths are not treif, are not treifas. Roiv cows are not treifas. And therefore, you can rely on that, and therefore not have the problem, or that particular problem in this cheese. But maybe that's the problem. Okay? What I'm doing is I'm taking the whole Taz and just, making it concise. What are the issues, and what's not an issue? Chalav tmeya is not such an issue. Chalav treifa is not an issue, because you have roiv. What is an issue? How they made the cheese. And the fact that goyim made the cheese, maybe. Okay, so the Taz is very lenient, and so are other meforshim, and I'm going to go quickly through some of who they are. Dover Amaimed, we don't say Dover that the Dover Amaimed is not royally skabed. Cheese is royally skabed, possibly the cheese. So if I know the cheese was made from chalav treifa, I would agree that Taz says that it's royally skabed, this piece of cheese. Chalav treifa. If I have a doubt, however, I can always use roy. But if I know that this is chalav treifa, the cheese as a gush, as a piece of body of solid, can be considered royal skabed according to some shitas. There is a sheet, I think it's the Marshal, that says cheese is not a royal skabed. I mean, forget it. Cheese is not royal skabed. You don't serve a big piece of cheese. Yeah, sliced American cheese. Royal skabed does not apply to cheese. Oh, great. Based on that sheet, we don't have a problem with cheese at all as far as royal skabed. Okay? According to the sheet that tells us no royal skabed on cheese, no problem. Great! Makes things easy. According to those who say that the solid cheese is royal skabed, okay. It's only the solid cheese. When do I have a problem with a solid piece of cheese? It comes from a treifa. The goy made it. But not the Dover Amamed itself. Why? Dover Amamed is not royal skabed, according to those shitas. There are shitas hold Dover or royal Isur Beheter. The Isur Beheter says, if this cheese was made by something treif, bittul will not apply here. Why? This is like, it's a royal skabed. A royal skabed? Yes. Because Dover Amamed is like the Isur Be'ein, he says. He calls it an Isur Be'ein, like the Isur is there. It's not bottle. Why? Because it's so important. It makes the whole cheese. That's the svara. If you want to know the svara, that's the svara. It makes the whole cheese. Dover Amamed is important. And by the way, Dover Amamed is not bottle. It does have chashivas. But the question here is, by a cheese, does it make the whole thing a royal skabed or not? That it's not bottle, I know. We hold it's not bottle. But the reason why I'm not concerned so much about the bittul of the Dover Amamed is because it's it's dirt. It could be something which is not edible. But the Taz says, no. I have a different problem. The Taz says personally, with cheese made with a davar amami that is treif. It's basar v'chalav. It could be that kind of a problem. The Taz says with that I would agree. That's the only thing I would agree with you, other than the cheese being a royal iskabed made from chalav treifa gemura or roy chalav treifa. But royal iskabed I don't have a problem with. Depending what it's made out of. If that royal iskabed is made from chalav treifa, they took chalav treifa, and they made it into an ingredient that will curd the cheese. Taz says I don't have a problem with that. Because davar mamid is not royal iskabed. But if the davar mamid is from the stomachs, like they many times used to make, I have a problem with basar b'chalav here. Today we don't have that problem. We have problem of enzymes. Enzymes, so what's the big deal? No. Enzymes, we still aser it. And because we still aser gavina is cheese that's made from enzymes, comes along the Yisur Beheter and says, anything they did makes no difference. It was made through enzymes, not made through enzymes. Everything is royally skabed. So the Yisur Beheter is the most machmir shita from all.
Because the Gentile made it.
Why? Because in the end the Gentile made it, yes. So the fact that the Gentile made it, therefore does not really make a difference what he used. It's also.
Now, so a Jew is fry. Does he have this context?
In this context, no, really.
So he could ultimately, a Jew who's fry might make a cheese. Uses the stomach of a treifa or basar b'chalav.
Yeah. And then we would have an issue whether it's basar b'chalav, whether it's a davar amamid.
But it wouldn't be
but it wouldn't be made by a goy.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So if you want to know real quickly the shitas. Let's see if I wrote them down here. Yeah, we don't have a problem if the goyim made it, because again we said that the roiv is not going to be for treifas anyway. As far as the roiv treifas, it's not going to be a problem. We're just going to have a problem that the goyim made it. So therefore, it's not going to have a din of royal iskabed just because the goyim. It's usher, but the din of royal iskabed will not apply to it. Yeah. Let me see here. I think that some call it, Chaves Das, by the way, calls it an Isur Balua, the whole Dover Amaimid here. It's not. Remember what we say by Chaticha Ruid Iskabed? It has to be an Isur Megufoy, Me'atzmoi. It cannot be an Isur Balua, remember that? Isur Balua means that, right? It has to be so Chaves Das, maybe others too hold that this whole cheese business that it has the davar amamid is an isur balua, if anything. It's not a royal iskabed. Torah's Chatas also brings down that the maimid is not a chaticha royal iskabed. And the prach, the shach, crazy place in Primigodim, I think were machmer with the cheese. But Mokom Hefsed, you can for sure be makel. You have several poskim that say that you don't either have a royal iskabed here to begin with. Let me see if I have it here. Yeah. Minchas Yaakov brings it down. The maskana with cheese you can be makel, not to consider royal iskabed, either according to the marshal that Grina is not a royal iskabed at all, or the sheet of the Torah's Chatas and the Taz. The cheese made by goyim is not considered royal iskabed. In other words, either the cheese in itself is never royal iskabed, or cheese made by goyim has no problem of being royal iskabed because of the way it's made. It's an isur balua. The maimid is not royal iskabed. Only if it's a basar b'chalav problem, if anything, would have a problem. But not for royal iskabed, it's not an issue. So you have quite a few poskim that tell us that if that ever becomes an issue with cheese, you can be lenient if you have to. Gabi bitul. All right, that was pretty much what we did last time. Now let's go on to another area. Very interesting area, and that is Seif Gimel. Tarnegolis Melicha. I'm going to read the Mechaber. You have a chicken that is still with its feathers, Shenis Arvu Ba'cheres, but that got mixed with others. So we got chickens mixing with chickens. One, of course, is not kosher, and it still has its feathers on. Betela. It is batal because share'eno ru'ui l'skabed. That's not called ru'ui l'skabed. Lifnei orchim k'moishi the way it is. You still need to unplug the feathers. You still have to salt it. You still have to cook it. Even though after it got mixed up, perhaps, he's saying a second halacha, even if after it got mixed in, they removed the noitzah, zero noitzah, removed the feathers, makes no difference. What would I think? Why would I think, it already got mixed in, they already removed the feathers? I would think choizer veneer. Here, no. Why not? Especially according to the Ramah. Ramah doesn't seem to have any problem with this, and the Ramah is the one that has an issue with choizer veneer more than the Mechaber. Why isn't there a problem of choizer veneer? Choizer veneer really, for the most part, only applies when there's more Isser. Remember that?
Right.
There is more Isser falling in. Choizer veneer, the original, together, boom. Here, is there more Isser? It's the same thing, it just has no feathers. The choizer veneer concept does not really apply over here. Choizer veneer typically applies because we have more Isser. You don't have more Isser here. Okay, but that's what one may think. The Mechaber says it has to be cooked. An entire sheep. Too big of a piece. This are not royally skabed. Do you ever give a guest in your home an entire sheep? No. No. But there are some who disagree with all that I have just said. When he says cholkim al zeh, he means everything I just said, they're choler. And say what? Say regardless, they're not bottle. An entire keves, trying to go with noitzes, raw meat, if it's big enough, big, small. There are some who say, yes, these things are still royally skabed. Now, where does the Mechaber take his information from this particular case? From the Tur, the Rosh. The Rosh happens to be one of them. He says, no way. It's always royally skabed, regardless of the condition it's in. Okay, we're going to get to him. The Ramah says, let's learn the Ramah. So in the Mechaber we have two shitas. We have what's called the Stam and the Yesh. And by the way, we have a rule, a famous rule in Mechaber, Shulchan Aruch. Mechaber does this many times. Whenever he brings, and even though he may do it using different words, usually when there's a Stam opinion and there's a Yesh, I call it the default. He's following the Stam. By default, he follows his first opinion. Even though he says Yesh, it doesn't mean he follows the Yesh. Why does he say it? Because you may want to consider this, especially in this case, the Yesh is a Chumrah. Sometimes the Yesh is a Kula. Here's a Chumrah. Okay? So the Mechaber apparently, most likely, holds like his first opinion. He's lenient when it comes to royal iskabed.
Is the Yesh because you took a whole sheet and then put it on the table, put up?
No. The Yesh is the other shitas, and I'm going to talk about who they are and why they say what they say. Okay? It's important to know why they say what they say. But anyway, before that, the Mechaber therefore is lenient. The Ramah is machmir. The Ramah says, V'chein noagin. Noagin what? That's the way we are accustomed to do what? Like the Yesh. We follow the second opinion of the Mechaber, that all these things can be royally skabed, except, I want to make an exception to the Ramah. The only one that I will not include in my rules of royally skabed is milvata negoles benoitzoso, a chicken that still has its feathers on. Why? The mechuseres maise godol. So he emphasizes the words mechuseres maise godol. This requires tremendous amount of preparation, unplucking the feathers, salting, and cooking. This is not royally skabed, I agree. But something which is raw meat, it's fine with me. It's royally skabed. You just cook it, and it's fine. So the only one that he has an exception that he agrees that it's not royally skabed, even though it's big, is chicken with feathers. And probably he would agree with a keves that has his wool or hair on him still, too. Yeah, right? But everything else, big, small, raw, Ramah doesn't have a problem. He's machmir. Why is the Mechaber mekel? Suffer the Rabbanu lekula. That's why. You have shitas. Like this. You have shitas like this. He's mekel. Suffer the Rabbanu lekula. That's the reason he's mekel.
I was thinking that he was mekel because he's dealing with health. So it's a serving by itself.
Okay.
As opposed to, he comes to the table.
Right.
And then
Okay.
the Ramah is saying, no, if you would bring the whole thing later,
Right.
then it's Mechaber. Even if,
Yeah, but the
I
thing...
suppose it doesn't have to be an individual portion, it's not.
Right. No, the royal kabbalah does not necessarily have to be the whole thing. It sometimes can be a section, a portion too.
No, I'm thinking the mechaber is as opposed to the Ramah who said it's the whole thing, and because you may serve it that way, and then
He said kevesh shalem.
Yes.
So I think that's what he's turkey shalem.
the whole turkey, the whole chicken,
Right.
the whole sheep.
So that would be not royal chabed because the kevesh shalem is not.
Well, keves shalem in the original form, that it still has his hair on. Apparently not. Yeah. So, but anyway, the Ramah is machmir. V'chein, he wants to also exclude raglaim or rosh shelo nichrechu misaron, legs and head and the head. Here you have it. You did not burn the hair off. But if the hairs have been removed, it's just not cooked, it's called chaticha ruiles kaved. Afilu lo nimlechu adayin. Listen carefully to this. Afilu lo nimlechu adayin, even though they have not been salted. Oh, he does say, afilu keves shalom eno botol, even an entire sheep. That's already, of course, the hair has been removed here, at least. Miu raglaim shel oifas of chicken, milvad ragle avaz, except for a duck. V'chein ragle behemoth, the feet of the animal, behemoth daka, like goats. The medinos elo in this country, they're not called chashiv klal, they're not important. Ubetelim, and these items will be bottle. Rosh shel oifas and the choshev of bottle. The same thing with the head of a chicken. It's not choshev and it's bottle, even though it's the head. Okay, so he goes into a little bit of detail. What yes, what not. Now listen. What's interesting, what caught my eye is he says here, afilu lo nimlechu. Wait a minute. Lo nimlachu? Doesn't that remind you of something, Ilan? Something which is lo nimlach. Is that a problem or not? What's the problem of a piece of meat that's lo nimlach? It has blood.
Only if
Right. But that's an isur balua.
it's not even an issue yet. If you cook it, then the blood will move.
No. Well, let's assume it's an usur. Okay?
Okay.
We said that any isur balua, and that was the example we used. That's the example that's being used in isur balua. Of piece of meat that was not salted. Why does not make that a royalist kabed? Because it's an isur balua. It has to be an isur begufoy. So here the Ramah is saying, well, wait a minute. Afilu lo nimlachu. It would still be royalist kabed. So what do you have to remember here? Why isn't this a problem? What he's saying. Remember, what he's saying is even if this piece of meat was not salted, it still could be royally scabbed, the way it is.
Maybe just shecht, 2 hours past the time.
No. We said the example of an Isur Balua, which is not royally scabbed, Isur Balua is not royally scabbed, right? Is a piece of meat that has not been salted. Because the dam of Balua is not royally scabbed. For something to be royally scabbed and be Asur, the whole thing has to be a cheftze of Isur. Pork, an avela, treifa.
Right. Are we talking here about an avela?
Exactly. So don't get confused. That's exactly it. Don't get confused, even though you just learned before that a piece of meat that's not salted has a din of Isur Balua, and that's why it doesn't qualify for royal iskabet. Don't get confused by the Ramah's words of saying that this piece of meat, even though it hasn't been salted, it's still royal iskabet. We just said before, piece of meat that's not salted, it does not qualify for royal iskabet because it's an Isur Balua. And here you're saying that it does qualify. Here the Ramah is only talking about the fact that something is still raw, and it's treif. This is a piece of treif meat. This is an avela. Forget the blood. I'm not talking about the blood. I'm not talking about the fact that this piece of meat has dam. We're talking about the avelas and treifers here. So even though this piece of meat hasn't been salted and it's still raw, it's still royally iskabed according to the Ramah, not the mechaber. The mechaber is of the opinion, the lenient opinion. No, it better be cooked. If it's not cooked, you can't serve it this way. So the Ramah, obviously, when it says that it's not maluach, don't confuse yourself. He's talking about an avela and a treifa here, in the status of being raw, not having been salted, and so forth. That's all he's saying.
In other words,
So you caught on to it.
before that,
Right.
you were talking about the blood being isur.
Right. That's all.
And
In
then
kosher,
said
in kosher.
blood is not a chaticha royally chabit because it's balua.
That's
So you're
correct.
talking about the meat being the isur, and here the Ramah is saying that it still has blood, does not prevent the meat that is an isur from becoming a chaticha.
That's correct. Right. Yeah. Okay. So real quickly, what do we have right now? We had a machaber, we had a Ramah. What are we talking about? The din of royal iskabet can run into trouble in various situations. One of them will be if it's this piece of meat is not entirely fit yet for some reason, it's missing a tikkun, some sort. It's not fit, and it could run into trouble that we'll see next week if it's destroyed somehow, cut up into pieces. Well, it's no longer royal iskabed. Just like a birya. Remember, birya becomes an unbirya if it's crushed. Royal iskabed can become not royal iskabed if something happens to it, or if something has not been done to it yet to make it fit to eat, possibly. But on that there's a big machlokas. On this part, whether it's fit to eat or not, there's a big machlokas rishonim. And that's what I want to do for the next few minutes. What's going on over here? Some say, regardless of the condition of this food item, hairy, uncooked, big or small, it's salted, it's big, it's royally iskabed in principle, that's it. It's not bottled regardless. And some say, no. Royally iskabed has to really be royally iskabed. What's the machlokes? So before I tell you who the machlokes is, what's the svara here? We see, before looking at other Rishonim, we see a little bit of a difference between the Mechaber himself, bringing two Shitas, and the Ramah. So obviously there's some people who are disagreeing about what royal iskabed really is. Now, we know royal iskabed means royal iskabed, but there are circumstances that this will not really yet be a royal iskabed unless something is done to it. Does it have to be cooking? Or what about just removing the hair? Or what about just removing, salting it? What criteria has to be met to make this royal iskabed? So one Shita holds, royal iskabed is the Chachamim had in mind a certain size. A certain size, a certain shear, that will not become bottle if it's there. It could be an entire animal, regardless of the hair. That was not their concern. The Chachamim, when they said royal iskabed, meant something important.
In terms of its size.
In terms of its size. Whereas the other Shita that we will soon see subscribes to a different Svara. The Svara of royal iskabed is, it has to actually, literally, be royal iskabed for me now. Is it or not? It's raw? It's not. It's not. I can't eat it. That's basically the Svaras over here. What will determine if it's royal iskabed or not? Well, it depends. What did the Chachamim have in mind when they say something that is royal iskabed? So some are going to say they had in mind a certain shear, regardless of what it looks like right now. If it's fit to eat now, it will be soon. And some hold, no, the whole idea of royal iskabed means literally royal iskabed now. It's royal iskabed. Is it? No, it's not. If it's raw, raw meat is not royal iskabed. So maybe before we go to the Shitas, I saw an interesting question or two on the Mechaber. Everybody likes to find steers in the Mechaber, and I love answering them. I hate to find steers. I don't believe in steers. I think the Mechaber had Ruach HaKodesh. Everything he wrote, he had a promise, by the way, from the Magid, the Malach, that spoke to him, that what you write will come out perfect, right, without any mistakes. So I believe that. I mean, there may be some things that need further elaboration and clarification, what he meant. Why is it really, really, really different here than there, when it's the same halacha. And if you look hard enough, you'll see that the Mechaber has a reason why, right? And we talked a little bit about, one example we gave recently was about Hanukkah, remember?
Yeah.
About the oil that's left over, that got mixed. Somehow over there, he's machmer. What was the issue over there with Hanukkah, with the oil? Remember, we said this should be a double sheish lo matir. Why not? What he was saying, bottle, not bottle. The question was whether we say it's bottle or not. Why shouldn't it be bottle? It's a double sheish. It's a form of double sheish lo matir. You can wait till next year, right? Remember the example of leftover oil. So the Mechaber was somehow a little bit strict. What for? All right, but anyway, some want to point out to Melicha. Melicha. In Hilchos Melicha and Samach Tes, I'm going to quote to you, and you correct me if you think I'm wrong, the way I understood it. I'll just quote to you what it says. Siman Samach Tes, Sif Yudalet, Basar sheshor shloisha yomim beloy Melicha. Meat that sat without being salted for 3 days. It's a problem, you know that. What can you do to it now? You can't cook it anymore. You can't salt it. You won't get the blood out. You're going to have to do tzli to it. You can only roast it on the open fire. So this piece of meat, sheshor shlosh yomi below melicha v'nisar v'oisa chaticha b'chaticha sacheres. It got mixed with other pieces of meat. Great. We have a question of Taaruvot in Melicha here. Right? This piece that was unsalted for 3 days came by truck, and it was not frozen. It should have been. They should have frozen it, but they didn't. If you freeze it, it's less of a problem. Sure, it's frozen. Otherwise, how do they do it when they ship it from Argentina to Israel? Either they salt it or they freeze it. If you freeze it, it's not a problem. Freezing it is what you need to do, but they didn't. So Nisarve got mixed up with other chatichas. Betela beroiv. Guess what? It's bottle in roiv. We're talking about solids here. Umutu levashel kulon, you can cook them all. Ve'afilo hoisaru liskabed. Even if it's royal iskabed. You hear that, Ilan?
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody here doesn't seem to have a problem with the mechaber. They immediately jump and tell you why. They offer an explanation. What's the explanation? Let's find one. The Taz. Sounds familiar. This is not royalist kabbat here. This is dam balua. That's true. We know that. We know that to be true. We know that to be true. Okay? So does the Shach. Everybody says that that's the reason the mechaber says that afilu oiser royalist kabbat. Okay, come along some people. I've seen somebody write about this. Wait a minute, mechaber, there's a stira. Here in Melicha, you're saying that something which is raw is roilis kabed, and here in Taaruvot, you don't call it roilis kabed if it's raw. Remember that? We just learned it now. Is that a stira or not? They want to point to the mechaber. There's a stira in the mechaber.
But here he says
a raw piece of meat, even if it was roilis kabed.
Yeah. Because it's always calling something that wasn't salted, roilis kabed.
Yeah.
That's their.
Yeah, he says no. So first of all,
he said that something wasn't salted. It's not about it.
Yeah. Now, what they said the mechaber, what the meforshim say is right. I mean, in essence, what they say is right. In other words, here we're talking about dam balua, and that's not roilis kabed. But the ones who have a question on the mechaber as far as the stira, why is he calling this piece of meat a roilis kabed if it's not cooked yet?
Right. That's the question.
Now, I don't see that as a question. Why? The real reason why the mechaber, I believe, says afilu oiser roilis kabed, it's bottle, not because of the dam, because of his shita that any time a meat is not cooked yet, it's raw, it's not roilis kabed. Even though this size is roilis kabed, from the size-wise, forget the dam, with all due respect to the Shach and Taz and everybody here, that's not the mechaber's intention, I don't believe. What he's saying is, their bottle beroiv afilu hoiser roilis kabed in a shear makes no difference to me. Why? Because it's raw meat. This is raw meat. Forget about the blood, Isu balua. This is raw meat. Raw meat, I hold like the shita that is not roilis kabed. So why do you say afilu roilis kabed? He's talking about the size. Even though this is a piece of meat that's roilis kabed, I'm with you. Oh, there's no bittul beroiv.
That's a problem, though.
1 second. Even though it's roilis kabed, no. But it doesn't qualify because it's raw.
No, I raise the problem?
Yeah, but before you raise the problem, well, the ones who say it's a contradiction, it's not a contradiction. Because that's exactly the point. The mechaber is saying why this is not a roilis kabed, because it's raw. It's exactly what he's saying there too. So, you see what I mean? What's your question?
That's exactly what you mean. I understand.
Doesn't the mechaber seem to be holding that any raw meat is not qualified for roilis kabed?
So why does he call this one that wasn't salted?
So they say, why is he calling this piece of meat that's not salted roilis kabed? That's their question, the question that I saw. And I don't think that's a question. Why? Because what's the reason that I believe he's saying this piece of meat is batel beroiv, even though it was roilis kabed? Because this piece of meat is raw. So why is he saying to use roilis kabed? That's exactly the point he's trying to make, that even though it has the size of an ordinary piece that is roilis kabed, here the fact that it wasn't cooked, wasn't salted, makes it not a roilis kabed. How else would he bring out this halacha? We know that roilis kabed is not batel. We know that roilis kabed is not. But here he says, wait a minute. this piece wasn't salted for 3 days. It's a problem. It got mixed. No, don't worry about it. It's bottle beroy. Bottle beroy, yeah. Even if it's royalist kabed, it's bottle beroy. Why? I tell you later in Hilchos Taaruvot that it's not cooked. Shach and Taz are also correct. Of course, they're saying the Isser in this meat is an Isser Balua. That Isser Balua is not royalist kabed, but we don't need that. We don't need that. I'm thinking, I don't know why, make it even better. Forget the dam. The piece of meat is not cooked. It's not royalist kabed. And that's the point he's saying here. So why is he saying the words? Because this does have a size of being royalist kabed, but it won't be a royalist kabed. How else should you say it? So is this a stira? It's not a stira. I mean, did I explain myself? Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'm very clear what you're saying.
Right.
Maybe they think it's a problem. I don't know what they think.
Yeah.
Maybe they think it's a problem for the whole. When we started this whole mission,
Right.
you said that there are two concepts as to what something royally chabed.
Right.
One concept is.
Right.
The other concept is whether it's prepared to be served to eat right now.
Right.
When the mechaber is talking about it's not been salted and it hasn't been cooked, it's still raw and so on, apparently he holds that the definition of lo'idit chabed is be eaten right now.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if he calls this piece lo'idit chabed because of its size, then he would be applying the definition of lo'idit chabed of size, the other side, the opposing definition. So it's difficult to assume, I think,
Right.
without further explanation on the side of the mechaber,
Right.
that you should simultaneously, in the same sentence, without further explanation, use the lo'idit chabed on the one hand as being defined that it depends on it's edible right now, it's already cooked, and simultaneously use that same lo'idit chabed in the sense of the size, which is the exact opposite conflicting opinion of what the definition of lo'idit chabed is. He's basically using the lo'idit chabed like a rubber band, using both opinions simultaneously. And to presume that is not without problem.
I see what you're saying, yeah. But when we learn Siman Kuf Hey, okay, no. I see your point. Your Ilan's point is well taken. In other words, royalist kabed, it depends how you hold. What's the svara of royalist kabed? Is it the shear, the size, or does it really have to be fit, literally royalist kabed? And here, if he's using it in a way to imply size, he doesn't hold like that.
Then he can't simultaneously quote the chabed because of the size and say it's not really it is misbattled because of its state of not being cooked.
Yeah.
Both at the same time. It's difficult.
Now, if you look at your notes, if you have notes, they bring up another question. They bring up the second apparent stira in the notes.
Oh.
They don't bring the first one, in the Melicha. I saw that they bring the second one. The second, what others also bring as a question, the mechaber from Siman Kuf Hey. That halacha is a little bit more complex. It involves taking meat from the butcher, finding out later that one of the pieces of meat was treif. And the mechaber says, you don't know which one you took home. And he uses the term there even if it's davar sheyesh lo matirin. It's okay. And the question is, how come he's using davar royalist kabed? Why is he using it over there? If we're talking about a butcher, usually butchers sell raw meat. Okay? Now, I don't want to get too much into that because it really is a whole different concept and a whole different siman. But just briefly, I mean, without being me'ayin too deeply into that halacha.
It's actually kufi.
Is it kufyut? Maybe kufyut. Maybe that's what the mistake I made. It was sif. You're right. It was sif hey. It's not kuf hey. It's kufyut seif hey. Thank you. The thing is, the mechaber will call it a royalist kabed even though it's at the butcher house, and at the butcher house it's still raw. Why are you calling it davar royalist kabed then? Okay. And over there it seems more difficult than over here. Because over there, it's really not royalist kabed. But he's talking about a size. He's talking about chashivas. Now, why is he telling us about chashivas if he doesn't, like Ilan says, his svara is more like, is this fit to eat or not, royalist kabed? Because he brought the yesh, the other shita, that says not like his first opinion. Whenever he brings, you will find in the mechaber, whenever he brings another shita that is quite an important sheet. I mean, we're talking about Rishonim here, and several of them. He does not just, do away with it. He considers them, And from time to time, you see it also in Basar and Taaruvot in other areas. From time to time, he may be for some reason we don't know machmir like that shita. Even though here is not machmir, the fact that he introduces the concept of this is a royal iskabet, even though it's still raw, it's at the butcher's house, which is why they're asking this question, does not necessarily mean that there's a contradiction. What he's saying is, even according to those who would be machmir in a raw piece of meat because it's a royal iskabed, in this case it would be mutar.
Why?
Why? For other reason, called the parish meruba parish, reasons that we'll be learning in Kuf Yud.
But it has nothing to do with the difference.
Nothing has to do with royal iskabed, exactly. So just because he borrowed the term, he's contradicting himself. It's raw, it's at the butcher's place. Why is he calling it a royal iskabed? Why is he even suggesting, but this is a royal iskabed? Who cares? According to you, this is not royal iskabed. You're right. You're right. According to me, it's not a royal iskabed, but according to others, it is. And here it would still be mutar. According to others, it is. Here it would be mutar for a different reason. So I don't, if we analyze the mechaber a little bit deeper, you'll see there's no contradiction, but we haven't gotten to that yet. But with Melicha, the same thing, very similar, based on what you were saying. You had a good point. But if the mechaber is all he's trying to do is borrow a term here. He's not,
Except
yes.
your explanation here becomes more difficult. You would be saying to the one who holds it depends on size. When you say it depends on size, it's still mutter because I hold it depends on whether it's cooked or not. And to him, who depends on size, that wouldn't make sense.
I'll tell you how I know this. How do I know? Do I have any support? Yeah. There's no Ramah here. There's no Ramah, saying anything. First of all, the Ramah, right, would definitely consider this royal iskabed. Right?
What is that?
Something, a raw piece of meat.
Are you talking about the Melicha now? Or
The Melicha case. Mm-hmm. He would definitely consider royal iskabed. So what are you going to say? The Ramah doesn't say anything because he holds like the Taz and the Shach who say that this is an Isur Balua? The Ramah has nothing to say about that fact that it's a royal iskabed. Because according to the Ramah does not have a problem with raw meat. And the Mechaber seems to be agreeing here with the Ramah. There was a philo hoisha royal iskabed, and according to those shitas, that it's royal iskabed, this will be a problem. Here it wouldn't be a problem. Why? You have your choice. Isur Balua, Shach and Taz say that, said so. Or the way I wanted to say that, forget about the Isur Balua, it's a raw piece of meat, according to the Mechaber's shita. But according to the Shach and Taz, you understand why he's saying royal iskabed, at least according to the Shach and Taz. Forget me. If this is an Isur Balua, why can't he borrow the term royal iskabed, even according to those who say this is royal? Why? I'm not allowed to use it just because, it reminds me of a story. There was a big rabbi who gave a drasha about shaitels, covering the hair. It's terrible if a woman who was married doesn't cover her hair. After the drasha, somebody comes over to him, a clown. There's always clowns. Rabbi, how could you talk about this? Your own daughter was with her hair uncovered. Just because my daughter does the wrong thing, he says, I shouldn't talk about the prohibition. I should never warn people about how serious this is. Just because of that should prevent me from talking about the topic. Just because I don't hold that this piece of meat is royal iskabed, because it lacks the qualification of being royal iskabed. But there are others who say, yes, it is. I shouldn't borrow the term and say I feel a royal iskabed. Some people are nitpicking over here. Oh, Mechaber, you calling it royal iskabed? This is a raw piece of meat. I feel a royal iskabed. Yes. So what? According to those who say it is, especially myself, I included that opinion in my own seif later on in Hilchos Taaruvot. I'm fully aware of them. I even said the yesh oisrim or yesh cholkim. See, he's entitled to borrow the term. I therefore have a problem with those who say that this is a stira because of this kind of things. Yeah. You follow me?
You said there's no stira.
Mechaber is not a stira. There's no stira. He's allowed to borrow the term. And for good reason he's allowed to borrow the term. Either he's saying even according to those who say it is. And of course, according to me, it's not. Why is it not? You have your choice. Shacheta says it's Isur Balua. Or like I wanted to suggest, forget about the Isur Balua. It's a raw piece of meat. Why is he saying it? Because even if it were to be, it doesn't apply here. Why doesn't it apply here? It has the shear, it has the size, it has everything. Still, it's raw. And according to those who hold raw meat is still royal iskabed, then the Shach and Taz tell you it's an Isur Balua. Either way, you're covered, you're safe. Everybody will be in agreement that this piece of unsalted meat will be batal.
And that would explain to you why the
Everybody will. All the shitas will.
And that's why it explains to you why the Ramah doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't have to be because.
It doesn't have to. Exactly.
It doesn't have to be because the mechaber is being mevatel because of his second.
Right. It could be for either one. Right. Because they're right. Because according to everybody, it would be batal. So that's why the Shach and Taz had. They said their svara because this one is good for everybody. I think that's why they chose that. The other one is just
because it's consistent with
calling it it's consistent, right?
It's consistent.
Yeah.
So you're saying that either way about it, that raw piece would be batal.
Yeah.
The unsalted meat would be batal. Either definition of obvious.
Yeah, it's not a royalist cabin. Right. Okay, just wanted to share with you that little point. All right. Okay. Now, just quickly. So we talked about the svara of what royalist cabin could be. Either nashir, or if it's really fit or not. And then we spoke a little bit about the choiz veneer issue. If the tarnegoles got mixed in, and then of course the hair was it was plucked later on, that the Isra is not choiz veneer. So we really have 4 shitas. So when we review the 4 shitas, we have the shita that holds of the rosh that regardless of what shape and form the piece is, big or small, hairy or not hairy, feathers or not, it's a royalist kabed. We have the samak and the maril. Maybe there are others who have a svara that if it's a tikkun godol, that this is lacking, a big tikkun, then it's not royalist kabed. But if it's a small tikkun, what's a small tikkun? It needs to be cooked, then it's still royalist kabed. Because just because it's raw, it's easy. In 45 minutes it will be done. So that's the samak and the maril. The Rashba and the Ran are the opposite end. They're the ones that pretty much, if we understand them, the Rashba is a little hard to understand exactly, but approximately he makes a distinction between the size of the piece, not too big, not too small, in between is fine. It's royalist kabed. But so he makes an issue more about the size of the meat, but as far as the bishul, it appears that he says that it's not me'akev, if it needs to be cooked. But the size does make a difference to him, so he's in between. Then you have the Ritva, the Ra'al, the Ramban, the Me'irid, and the Muki Yosef, who hold that royalist dabek only applies to something which is fully cooked, but raw meat is batal chad betray. In other words, in roiv. So you have the various shitas of either the two extremes, regardless of what it looks. It's royalist kabed. The other one that holds no, it better be fit, it better be cooked and ready. And you have the ones in between, which even includes the Rashba. I mean, the Rashba makes an issue of the size too. It has to be the right size. It can't be too small. But it appears that the Ramah did, of course, subscribe to the shita that holds that if it's raw, it's still okay, but if it's full of feathers, it's not. In other words, and he calls that a tikkun godol, right? He calls that if it requires mechuseres maise godol, then it's not. So it depends how much has to be done to it. So you have various shitas, and depending, of course, on the situation, sometimes we can rely on those that hold that it's not a royalist kabed. What we're going to be seeing next week is various parts of the animal, including the kurkavan. You know what the kurkavan is? The gizzards, the pupik, as they call it in Yiddish. What about them? Are they royalist kabed or not? And that some of these things, that's interesting. Some of these things that really depend on the minhag hamokam. And if in this place, like the Ramos seem to be saying about certain items too, is it chashuv or not chashuv? It could also depend on the place itself. It does not necessarily mean that there is a vadai, a classification of certain parts of an animal always to be royalist kabed. It could be that this will also depend on the place. That we'll cover already next week. Okay.